So this video podcast is basically describing the use of independent expenditures in California elections. California's Political Reform Act of 1974 permits the use of independent expenditures. And the general definition of an independent expenditure is basically an expenditure for a communication, things like a website, newspaper, TV ads, direct mail advertisements, that expressly advocate for the election or defeat of a clearly identified candidate. In California, the law is found in the government code in Title IX, which is the Political Reform Act, and in code sections 85,500 to 85,505. In addition, the Fair Political Practices Commission that regulates campaigning in the state of California has its campaign disclosure manual, and section manual 6 deals with independent expenditure committees. It's 69 pages in length and contains a considerable amount of information on the qualifications of an independent expenditure committee, advertisement disclosures that are required, and obviously reporting requirements for those independent expenditure committees. Those 69 pages are far too much for us to go into in a brief podcast. So what I wanted to do is cover the main statutory provisions that are applicable to independent expenditures. And those are contained in Chapter 5. So in Government Code Section 85,500 Subdivision A, it requires a committee that makes independent expenditures of $1,000 or more during an election cycle in connection with a candidate for elected state office or even a state ballot measure to file online or electronically a report with the Secretary of State disclosing what independent expenditures they make. Independent expenditure committee reports are required to make the same disclosures as other campaign committees, and they generally have to be filed within 24 hours of the time that the independent expenditure is made. Now, Section 85,500 Subdivision B specifies that an expenditure may not be considered independent and therefore is to be treated as a contribution from the person making the expenditure to the candidate on whose behalf or for whose benefit that expenditure is made, if the expenditure is made under any of the following three circumstances. First, the expenditure is made with the cooperation of or in consultation with the candidate on whose behalf or for whose benefit the expenditure is made, and any controlled committee or any agent of that candidate. Second, that the expenditure is made in concert with or at the request or suggestion of the candidate on whose behalf or for whose benefit the expenditure is made, as well as for any controlled committee or any agent of that candidate. Or third, that the expenditure is made under any arrangement, coordination, or direction with respect to the candidate or the candidate's agent and the person making the expenditure. Government Code Section 85,501 provides that a controlled committee of a candidate may not make independent expenditures and may not contribute funds to another committee for the purpose of making independent expenditures to support or oppose other candidates. And finally, in Government Code Section 85,505, it requires the Secretary of State to include on its internet website of the Secretary of State, of course, as part of their campaign finance activities that are publicly disclosed on their website, to disclose any independent expenditure that is reported with respect to a candidate for elected state office, as well as a statewide ballot measure. So again, those are the statutory provisions related to independent expenditures in California. You'll have to look on for yourself on the FPPC website and review their 69-page manual on independent expenditure committees.